And welcome back to the Amazon European Masters. I'm still Medic, he's still both that side. He's still Orcs over there. And we're not in the same room, which is, I wish we were. Be nice, man.
No, wrong side. I got the wrong side as well.
See, it's very difficult, man.
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult.
Yeah. We have our next game, our second game of the day coming up. Mousesports versus Macko, the third seed from the DACH region up against the first seed from Italy. Now, Macko yet to pick up a win so far here in the Amazon EU Masters Orcs.
And it's a bit of a tragedy, honestly. I mean, you look at the score 0-3. If you didn't catch last week, you might think, yeah, these are the run of the group. But this is just a hard group. And honestly, Macko, every game felt like we could potentially see them take it. And then it just kind of felt like at the end, they just fell over. They're good at everything except taking Nexuses, it appears, at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem for them, right? Like, the last time these two teams played, it was a 50-minute slugfest as well. And yeah, I think we were popping on at like 1 kill a minute between the two teams. You can see, obviously, MOUZ having a good performance in their game versus Giants as well. Although they were unable to end up closing out this game, they were challenging, you know, Giants who we've just seen beat out Carmine Corp. So
yeah, and even, I mean, this match against K-Corp, and you saw them absolutely slam the bot lane, ruin Xmatty's stats for the rest of the competition by pretty much just annihilating him. And I love that Macko have been bringing out these creative drafts. They had the Nasus mid, they had the Maokai into the Rakan, so obviously you have that point-and-click CC. But it still feels like, despite having strong early games, being good at setting up plays, when it gets to that mid to late game, some of the decision making isn't quite there. Some of the fight setup isn't quite there. And we've just seen K-Corp and Vodafone Giants, both of them able to clutch out against Macko, both of them able to clutch out against MOUZ.
And the question becomes, can Macko start picking up wins? Because if they're not able to win this game, they are out of contention for one of those two quarterfinals berths. And it would be sad to see them out this early in the day. Obviously, someone has to get knocked out, and it's possible later on today that they will. But with Vodafone Giants beating Carmine Corp in game one, it actually becomes even harder for Macko or Mousesports to catch them. Macko need to win every single game and hope results go in their favor, and Mousesports need, well, pretty much every single game as well, and hoping that results go in their favor. So it's an uphill battle for both these teams when it comes to making it to quarters.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just a difficult spot, because for Mousesports, if you do drop this game, then you're kind of reliant on Macko actually beating out one of the other two to keep them within range. So it becomes very tense. MOUZ is definitely still in with a potential chance to take this, but you really just need to take this win. Start the day off strong. You have much more matches throughout this day, but I think it's just going to be a pretty big one for either side. But we had such a drawn-out, massive slugfest in the last game. I expect both teams just be bringing it all, fighting constantly, and it's going to be enjoyable for us at least, but a very tense one between the two.
I do like keeping my voice though, so I don't mind a long slugfest. I just want it to be more controlled, you know. Don't want to be shouting every 30 seconds.
I feel bad for your neighbors, honestly.
Both these teams go at like 1 kill a minute on average over 40-minute average game times, which is absurd. Like 40 kills in a game is pretty high up there in terms of numbers. We'll see what they decide to do today, and whether we see something creative as well from Macko. You know, they've had the Ezreal mid, they've had the Nasus mid, they had that double enchanter Nasus combination that almost worked out for them. It's interesting to see a team so willing to change things up, and I'm just wondering if they have something in their back pocket for this game.
Yeah, I hope so, because it's been cool to see the different comps that brought out. But I think my main praise for Macko has been they're very good at being proactive and setting up plays. I think that's where their strength is. It's been why they've been able to find 80 leads. The thing that they kind of struggle with, I feel, is they're not as good when they need to sacrifice something. You know, if there's a cross map play that they could just leave, or if they're taking a bit of a disadvantage here, they tend to try and contest it even if it's not optimal, and that's really where things can start to fall apart. I think if Macko got better at cutting their losses and were a bit crisper around their setups for team fights, they really could have been competitive in this group, but it has just been a difficult group.
I mean, it's always going to be. That's kind of what Amazon EU Masters is about, right? Like getting the best of every region and really putting them up against each other. We've already seen two of the best in Europe challenging each other in game one. Let's see if Macko and MOUZ can match that same sort of energy. Once again, unsurprisingly, Gadget has his Karthus band away from him, and there's the Annie band going against Sebekx as well. So we've got rid of the one tricks. Let's move on to more normal bands here as LeBlanc gets removed.
Yeah, a little bit interesting ones, but obviously if you haven't got much practice against it, if you know this player's a specialist, just get rid of them. But I like the LeBlanc ban. I think Czekolad has honestly been an absolute monster. We saw some of his Syndra highlights earlier. He has been on point, so I like that they're targeting Wei. And then the Varus taken away from Gadget, definitely something he will lean on, a big comfort for him.
Yeah, even seen him bring that out at the world stage in years gone by. With the Seraphine being removed, that double enchanter combination from Bushy and StenBosse is not going to be able to be picked up this time. So let's see where MOUZ go with their final ban. Expectations are, you could look towards something like the Tristana, which is what is removed, and now Macko have first pick.
Yeah, so still a lot of things open. The Zhao is a big one. The Syndra is a big one. We're talking about Czekolad's strength of that. I like that they're denying it. And also, Bushy is a mage bot player, We talk about the flexibility of picks like the Syndra, but a lot of teams don't actually utilize them. But I actually think Macko are a team who would. They would put it in the bot lane and make use of that.
It'd be interesting to see that Syndra go down towards the bottom side because, of course, like Twisted Fate and Rise still up and available, and those have been sort of the go-to mid laners so far. So to see the Syndra picked up so early is a little bit of a surprise. There's a more normal, a more usual set of picks here from MOUZ with the Rakan and the Zhao, and immediately answered with the Viego.
Yeah, so two junglers we see traded off a lot often. Obviously, the power of Viego is in those resets and those skirmishes, but the Zhao just really bulky, really good in those early fights. And then bit of a trade-off supports. Rakan has been showing up a lot and I think really powerful in the ADC, really powerful in the Z Masters so far. But I like the Thresh, and the reason I really like this here is because it sets up if you do want to put that Syndra bot. One of the issues with having the Syndra is that potentially you have that vulnerability. You are immobile, especially against Rakan. The Lantern gives you that extra safety net. We will, however, see that Ziggs picked up for Gadget.
Yeah, speaking of mages in the bot lane, Ziggs going to be locked in here for Gadget. We'll see if it's matched by the Syndra or whether there's something else in the cards for Macko down towards that bottom lane. As you say, Bushy possibly or can play those mages down towards the bottom side, so we have that mage into mage matchup. Into the second phase of bans, though, it's going to be AD carries removed by MOUZ, so they're expecting that Syndra to go towards mid lane. And I mean, Macko have the option. If they want to put Sebekx on the Syndra, now you can ban out more mid laners. You can get rid of the Rise, you can get rid of the Twisted Fate if you want, or you could even focus Czekolad's champion pool a little bit more and remove things like the Orianna.
Yeah, I think definitely an asset there because there is that flexibility. I think the Kalista, though, makes complete sense in terms of things that can punish the Ziggs. As much as he has tons of wave clear and is very safe, that really comes online when he's got a few points in his queue. If you have a pick like, the Kalista, the Draven, who can challenge from level 1, it can make things really difficult, especially with Rakan, who doesn't offer too much early pressure. We'll see that Camille band away targeted the top lane of Macko. Jace another one, so starting to look towards the top lane pools a bit more. Remember, MOUZ does have counter pick in this situation for whichever lane they want it for.
I'll see where they decide to put that. Lots of top laners getting banned away. There's the Aurelia, the Camille as well, alongside the Jace, and now MOUZ will probably look towards... I mean, do you just go safe top or do you go for a mid laner? Zed is the hover. I doubt we'll see that, but you never know. Czekolad very willing to take some trades in the mid lane. There's the Sett, so again, could be mid lane, could be top lane.
Yeah, technically a flex. I think into Syndra maybe a bit of a trickier matchup, but if you burn the Syndra's flash early with a gank, there's so much threat onto that back line, so it keeps things a little bit open. And I think for Macko, you're in a little bit of a tricky spot here. I think you'd probably just want to put the Syndra mid for that extra early pressure. I do like the Kennen that's been hovered, though. I think in terms of sort of those disruptive team fights, you're going to have a lot of short-range champions diving in. The Slicing Maelstrom can get a ton of value there.
It definitely can, and the expectation is, I guess, that Sett is going towards the top side. Of course, Czekolad can play it mid, like I said, but Kennen into Sett is a really nice matchup as well because you can just constantly chip away at him even though he has that passive health regeneration. Macko now, if that Syndra is mid, we'll see an AD carry or another bot laner being picked, and there it is. Bushy's going to take his Jinx.
Yeah, I think it has to be an AD carry here just because you have so much AP. You really need that AD source. But a Jinx, another one, you have that strong backline and you have tools to keep it safe, right? The Thresh is great at keeping a mobile carry safe. The Slicing Maelstrom buys space. And for MOUZ, it kind of feels like they have that sort of dive composition. The Ziggs throws the ultimate on top as the rest force forwards. Looks like they are just going to take the Viktor, so another mage on top, which can scale very well and do a lot of damage, but you're not going to have as much early priority as the Syndra. I think that's a critical thing. Both teams, decent sort of late game options, decent sort of early pressure. I feel like definitely that sort of mid game point I can see when Gadget starts to clear waves easily. You can free up Kamilius with Rakan, and that's where I think MOUZ could maybe pull ahead.
Have to see if they're able to use their mid-game tools. They have quite a lot of them on their plates. Macko have great scaling as well, though. Syndra can just use that outplay button when the game goes on, and Ziggs, I mean, probably does have enough range to keep himself away from that, but if he's ever caught out, can just be bursted down. Rakan the same. Scatter the Weak, great into Rakan as well. Great into Rakan engages. It's very difficult for the Rakan to ever find an avenue to approach, and even if he does, you're then walking into a slicing Maelstrom. So late game team fights, I think we're going to see a lot of zone control for both these teams. I think Macko maybe have the edge in terms of pure composition, but Mousesports won the last time these two teams played, and it was a back and forth affair.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, we didn't see anything too interesting coming out from Macko here. Obviously, we talked about how they brought out all these sort of spicy picks. This is fairly standard from what we expect to see in EU Masters, but I think there's something to be said for Bushy on the Jinx. I think he's really been a standout player for this roster. We saw in the Calista, obviously he was funneled resources into him, but he was able to sort of take advantage of those, but it just wasn't quite enough. And now Macko have given themselves a ton of strong team fighting tools. So if they do find that early pressure, particularly around a Syndra in the mid lane who can sort of get control of the lane, expand that out, then we could see Macko in a position where the comp essentially plays itself. And I think easy to execute team fight is what you should go for if you have been struggling, right? Because it essentially just, when you get to those team fights, you press your R buttons, you should feel pretty comfortable to just win the game if you have a lead.
Press R, win game is something we always talk about in every tournament, right? Especially if you're starting out, it's just ease of execution beats out complicated comps 9 times out of 10. It's so much easier for you to understand how you want to play fights, how you want to set up, and you don't have to think about all these intricacies of how the fights end up playing out. Pridestalkr is going to start on the bottom side of the map. Cboi looks to be up towards the top side. So both junglers going to be pathing in different directions to start us off.
Yeah, which, actually might see a bit of a switch up. So this is something that MOUZ actually did in their game up against Vodafone Giants, is when they were up against the Kennen, they swapped the mage up against the Kennen, because obviously Kennen wants to play into a melee champion like the Sett, just harass him down, use that range advantage. Into a mage, it's actually much harder for him, and already Czekolad's found him level 1, gone for a pretty heavy trade. This isn't going to get better. The Antonio, he played into Czekolad's Syndra, and he ended up like 3 levels down and just kept getting solo killed. It was not a fun time. Interesting
as well, Satorius actually took 2 of the small minions, I think, from the Razorbeak. Unless, no, I'm probably just totally wrong on that. Sorry. It's because I'm looking at him being in the mid lane, but then it's Viktor in the mid lane. So I'm sorry, confused brain. LEC ended a week ago. I haven't done anything for a week, guys. I apologize. My brain doesn't work for League of Legends anymore. Yeah, it's been a long week. Czekolad will get level 2 first, though, and be able to force StenBosse out of the top lane. He's going to have to back. Actually, might need to TP back into this lane. I wonder if he has enough gold for something like a refillable, or if it will just be a couple of potions. The hook lands in the bottom lane. Kamilius was pulled back, but is able to dance back with that battle dance.
Yeah, and this is kind of the power, the sort of the early levels of the Ziggs. You can't really do too much. Now they can have Rakan, which gives Macko the freedom to pick something like the Jinx, and just essentially you have that pushing power from the rockets. You can chill with it, but I gotta credit MOUZ for this creativity, because as much as you sometimes see scenarios where swapping the lanes is good, a lot of teams aren't as willing to do it because they don't have the comfort to put their mid lane on the top lane and mid lane. But MOUZ have shown this is the second time this tournament that they are very comfortable. Czekolad doesn't care that he's in the top lane. The dynamic of being a longer lane, not being the center map, but it doesn't bother him. And Satorius, when you're playing Sett's in Zhao early, seems pretty scary as a Syndra. If you lose your flash to a gank, which, you know, could potentially see here, you would be in a lot of trouble.
Sebekx stepping up, looking to catch out Pridestalkr on this first Scuttle Crab. Even if he can just delay here, he can keep Pridestalkr in a little bit of a tricky situation, but just gets the ward down. Pridestalkr will take the first Scuttle Crab, and StenBosse continues to be pushed underneath his tower. Click now in the bottom lane has just helped Cboi get his Scuttle Crab of his own. So jungle is pretty even across the board, but a big discrepancy starting to develop between Czekolad and StenBosse here, with the Kennen almost half, well, actually under half of Czekolad's CS.
Yeah, and it's not going to get better. I think, honestly, Czekolad can just keep pressuring him. And then at some point, Pridestalkr is going to walk top lane. They're going to dive him because he'll be like 20% HP. And that will basically be his lane over. Doesn't really get better from that point. And the thing is, if the Viktor's fed, StenBosse is really going to struggle to team fight because he can essentially just one-shot him as he approaches, right? Unless StenBosse has flash and comes from a flanker over a wall or something, he can very easily just get bursted out.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult as the Kennen to actually ever navigate a fight. It's not like an Ornn where you just need a cup like a balmy Syndra and a little bit of tankiness and you have usefulness in the fight. If as Kennen you don't have that Zhonya's, if you don't have that item complete, you really have no way of getting into that backline without just flash ulting, and then, well, you're probably dead before you can really get any damage off anyway. Kamilius and Gadget continue to push in the bottom lane. Gadget, of course, a very well-known Ziggs player alongside his Karthus. This is something we saw him bring out at Worlds and MSIs in the past, so he'll be very comfortable in this matchup. Bushy does have a slight CS lead as he catches this wave as well, but for the moment, Gadget and Kamilius just using the pressure that they have to continually keep Bushy under tower.
Yeah, and you're approaching the point where, as the Ziggs, you can kind of just be a bit self-sufficient. When you get to level 5, 3 points Q, you can essentially just shred the waves really easily. Already has that tier and the Dark Seal, so plenty of mana to sort of work with. It's just sort of waiting for that point, and that's when I expect to see Kamilius really being proactive around the map. And I want to see focus mid lane. Syndra is often someone who can just really easily contest priority, but if you take out her flash just with a gank, then it puts her in a position where she's not going to be able to push freely. She has to sort of play a bit more defensive. She can't roam the side lanes without threat of his Zhao jumping on her, and that's when you can start to use that Sett to spread pressure and get a bit more control. Now, I was talking about this before, the 20% Kennen in the tower. Looks like it's come to fruition.
I mean, StenBosse giving the respect that was needed there over to Pridestalkr, knew that his jungler was on the bottom side of the map, so just didn't want to go forward. But I will say something here, Orcs. When we talked a bit about this game, you promised me a slugfest. You promised me non-stop action, one combined kill a minute. Long games, yes, but tons of kills in every game. So far, we're 6 minutes into this game, and no one's got a kill. Like, no one's even really been that close to dying, Orcs. So what's going on?
They got a lot to make up for, right? You know, even if they don't necessarily have too much action in the levels, I still expect this to get quite bloody throughout. If you actually look at the stats below, those 2 game times are the first and second longest. And in fairness, it's because MOUZ and Macko did have a 50-minute game, but the big takeaway is how many kills per game. And also, the stat at the bottom is combined kills per minute. Yeah, that's it. So 1, I think you were telling me before, 1 is like pretty high, and they managed to maintain that despite the fact they have the longest average game time. These are not just slow-paced, very methodical teams. These are bloodthirsty teams, but weren't quite the best at closing them out.
Yeah, for example, like Mad Lions during their really bloody affair throughout playoffs, I think was at 1.1 or so average combined kills a minute. So even a team that is like really into heavy action doesn't really get above that 1 mark on average. LCK, I think for a while during this season had 0.43, which is like, yeah, slightly slower than some other regions around the world. But expectations are that we'll see some bloodshed, that we'll see some skirmishes. Top side of the map, perhaps the Rift held a possibility. First rank of the game did go over to Macko. Cboi took it. Sebekx coming across to be gifted over this blue. Gives him more pressure into this set in the mid lane, but haven't really seen him gain a large lead here. Satorius doing a very good job of keeping even on CS and not being forced out by this Syndra too much.
It kind of feels like Satorius walks up, basically one-hits the wave with his combo, and Sebekx tries to trade into him, burns a bunch of mana, but then Satorius just heals it up from his passive, and like Orange Shield second wind, just very OP combo, so not really able to achieve too much there. And it kind of has put Sebekx on the back foot, because the whole point of picking the Syndra is you want to be able to sort of have that early priority and play around with. That being said, though, the Syndra's mid game is really strong, because big talking points are always level 6 you get your ultimate, level 9 your Q's max, you get that bonus damage from your passive, level 11 2-point your ultimate, and then level 13 you get your second ability, use the Scale of the Week max. So those are points where Sebekx can really start to have pressure. But now trying to spread that pressure towards the Herald, but MOUZ are looking to contest, and they have brought a lot more numbers than Macko have.
Yeah, importantly here, Bushy is still down towards the bottom side, does have that super mega death rocket, but my expectation is that Macko will just leave this one Rift held. Will be taken low by MOUZ. Cboi stepping forward. Gravity Field will keep him at bay. There is the super mega death rocket, but MOUZ able to pick up the Herald and walk out of it.
Yeah, more for light bit of poke rocket than death rocket in that situation. Do you see the TP from Gadget? So he's going to be able to cover that bot wave. I respect the decision from Macko. They allow Bushy to get a bunch of solo farm. You can actually see he's got a decent amount of CS over Gadget. He gets a plate as well, gets a tower a bit lower. Yes, they end up giving the Herald, so there is potential for MOUZ to benefit from this more, but you don't go for a sort of coin flippy fight. And remember, we talked about the fact that things like the Zhao, the Sett, even the Rakan with that engage power can be quite difficult to deal with in this mid game. So I like the decision from Macko. And again, this is something we talked about leading into this, that sometimes they can be a bit poor at cutting their losses, and this is them showing that they've sort of made the decision, this isn't the optimal play for us, let's not go for it.
Yeah, definitely a growth opportunity for them, and they're showing that they have learned from past mistakes. For the moment though, MOUZ with a very slight gold lead, about 200, 300 ahead. A level advantage as well for Pridestalkr over Cboi, who's still only level 6. That will tick over to 7, I expect, with this red buff. Might be a little bit short, looking at the XP bar in the bottom left corner, but he should be pretty close. At least we'll get it on the Crux.
And I think at this point for MOUZ, you have the Herald in pocket, you have a Ziggs. I would think this is sort of tower taking time. This is where you want to use the Herald, get a structure, go somewhere else on the map, keep applying that pressure. Top lane tower's already going to be low on plates because Viktor's had so much pressure, so I expect to see them move there afterwards. But I think that is the best sort of port of call for MOUZ, is to try and start taking those structures, getting that gold lead.
I'm just going to say, we need 2 aces in the next 30 seconds. Otherwise, we're well behind on our combined kills a minute here. Or I was expecting more action. Cboi is working his way down towards
They're rooting the
like
stats.
FLICKR as well. They are absolutely screwing them. But for the moment, both teams willing just to scale up or be forced under their tower in the case of StenBosse. Pridestalkr will get the shove here in the mid lane. Does still have that Rift hold. And has the full timer of that to place it down to get plates. It looks like he and Satorius are going to work their way towards top side. Czekolad didn't actually get the first plate gold from the first of these 2 plates that have gone down, but we'll get the second, and Riftail is going to get plonked down here by Pridestalkr. That will be the first tower and all 5 plates over to MOUZ.
Yeah, Czekolad dropping his ult to chunk StenBosse out, and he has just not been having a fun time in this matchup. Credit to him, he hasn't died. We did see the sort of MOUZ matchup with Czekolad against the Antonio. A lot of deaths.
Gadget oversteps here, looking for the play on the satchel charge. He will still have it. He tries to get away, but he goes the wrong way. Clears out the way. First blood to Bushy.
Yep, and it's just, you gotta respect that. That's the thing when you're playing the Ziggs, is you can be left alone because you can clear the wave, but you have to be cautious about those brushes. The lack of vision from your support not being there. It's a free kill, give over, and now she's going to be able to get some damage onto this tower. And they've kind of just silently picked up 2 Drakes on the back of this, right? They got their second there, but haven't already got the first. It is an Infernal Soul, which, it goes without saying, definitely a lot of people rate that as the strongest. But I think more than anything with these compositions, there is a lot of champions who would benefit from that soul.
Bushy also looking for the second plate in the bottom lane. Will pick it up 120 CS at the 12-minute mark, farming at 10 CS a minute. Sebekx doing the same. And we'll have another look at this play. You can see Click and Bushy. It's such a common bush. Gadget tries to play safe and just doesn't respect the fact that Thresh could be waiting there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're on the weak side. You have your ultimate. If you really feel threatened from a dive, you can just play the wave out with that. But I think a little bit greedy from Gadget. I know obviously he was positioning back to play safe, but there were 4 members of the enemy team on the bot side. You have to be even more respectful than that.
Yeah, and your jungler's top side as well. It's like one of those, just give it up. Do what StenBosse did earlier, you know, go stand in the pixel bush and wait until you see people on the map. It just gives over kills, gives Bushy his Gale Force as well. He'll be able to dodge around these fights and try and keep himself at arm's length from the engage possibilities that Mousesports have. 1,000 gold the distance between these 2 teams, with a very clear divide on where the gold is going to sit. You can see Czekolad the key point for MOUZ, whereas Bushy is the key point for Macko.
You know what I love is that throughout the laning phase, you know how we had the mix-up where Czekolad...
Yeah, we've switched it around now, and now I'm even more confused because Czekolad's back in the mid lane. Oh. Switch it back as the fight comes out. Kamilius looking for Cboi here. Bushy coming in from the side as well, clicking up back. The satchel charge. Cboi's going to get onto the lantern. Pridestalkr still chasing in here. Crescent Guard's going to do a lot. There's the Mega Inferno Bomb as well, but Cboi's able to flash away from it. And Mousesports will be kept at bay.
Yeah, I mean, the lantern's enough. It's a flashes trade, and essentially, there's nothing to play for here, right? Dragon's not up, so as much as it was close to taking down Cboi, not really able to secure anything. Speaking of securing, though,
Gadget still had the flash, saved it last time, didn't use it when he was in a sticky situation. Hook dodged away there by Kamilius, but this Macko bottom lane has control of this lane, has control of this side of the map. The issue for them is Gadget can clear out this wave pretty easily, even though he's low. Yeah,
and that's the thing, you know, he'll be able to reset here, be back in position to, should be able to defend this tower, but it's just showing the threat already to Jinx. But she's had pretty much a free laning phase at this point. Obviously going to scale really well in the late stages, has the Thresh to provide space, a lot of peel as well, so I think Macko are feeling pretty comfortable overall in this situation. It has been a slower game. It's not necessarily what we expected, but I think I'm looking at that dragon in 2 minutes. It would be the third for Macko. This is where I'm expecting things to start to heat up.
Cboi, of course, no flash from that last fight either, and that won't be up for the Infernal fight. As you say, it would be the third for Macko, would put them on sole point in MOUZ. You have to expect we'll want to fight it. Mythic's complete on their bot lane, their mid or top lane on the scoreboard, and their jungler right now, so they're in a pretty strong position. Cboi actually, he can sneak away this Herald. The rest of Macko are on their way. If they can get this, it gets you free priority in the lane when that dragon is up and makes it a lot harder for MOUZ to defend. The rest of Macko unable to walk into the river yet. StenBosse looking for a flank position, but there's a control ward in the bush that he's about to walk into. He will get the mid prio. The eye available for Pridestalkr here. Click stepping forward. There's the hook. Only lands onto Satorius. Flash away. Kamilius going in as well. Pridestalkr just looking for the Herald himself. Kamilius almost low. StenBosse going in. Gets the slicing mouse onto the backline. Gadget trying to get away. Satchel charge will keep him at arm's length. Cboi's killed off Kamilius. Satorius on the back with the haymaker, but he gets hooked. Rift Herald taken out. Pridestalkr still there. Satorius is killed off Bushy. Sebekx trying to trade onto him. Doesn't have the unleashed power. Satorius just looking to get to that plant, but can't quite get there. Pridestalkr did get the Rift Herald himself, and Mousesports will be able to come out on top in the trade.
Such a messy fight that MOUZ, not only do they get the Herald, but also should be able to get back on the map sooner for that dragon. It's only 40 seconds away. Macko will be there to contest, but they're going to lose control of the dragon area completely. And on top of that, Bushy now no longer has his flash. StenBosse no longer has his flash. We do see a ton of summoners traded across the board, but that means these engages will be a lot more potent. But I'm looking at the ult cooldowns. I don't think the Slicing Maelstrom is going to be up. I don't think the Showstopper as well is going to be available. So a lot potentially not around, and this just becomes a very split fight. It's actually very difficult for Macko to move in through this choke point. But what ends up happening is a couple of members of MOUZ push forwards. I think Satorius in particular, and it's kind of just a very split, divided fight that ends up panning out.
You can see Bushy like just can't get away from Satorius. He's literally just running at him. And Click with a flay, perhaps in the wrong direction as well. They just got Satorius a little bit closer to his AD carry than he would have once. StenBosse tried to get onto the backline, did catch out Gadget and Pridestalkr, but they were able to keep themselves safe. Slicing Maelstrom, about a 10th of its timer left, but with no flash, StenBosse will find it very difficult to get into this fight. He does have the TP. Macko may be looking for a Cboi Heartbreaker jump in, Lantern out possibility here. Would be a nice connection for Cboi, and you can see MOUZ respecting the fact that's a possibility. Heartbreaker still available for Cboi. There's the gravity well. Heartbreaker going in. The smite goes down, and it's secured by MOUZ. Good hook onto Pridestalkr as well, but with the Crescent Guard, they do not want to follow it up.
This is why I'm kind of confused about Macko's decision to so heavily invest for that Herald, because I think that's not really the greatest fight to take for you. You know, if you'd managed to secure the dragon in this situation, it would have been a lot better. You could have set up for the dragon early. If MOUZ take the Herald, it could give them priority, could give them mid tower, but realistically that tower's already low, it's already satchel away. I really think playing for the dragon would have been the better thing to do, because that steal, you know, we talk about 50-50s, that wasn't a 50-50, didn't really give him a chance. That was more like an 80-20 in favor of MOUZ. And now there is still that possibility for soul for Macko, but we're looking at like 27 minutes into the game. It would be quite a late one, although I say that the last game was 50 minutes, so
yeah, that's halfway through our game, mate. You got tons of time. Still only 5 kills at the 18-minute mark, so we do need to have a little bit more explosive action if we're going to see us get back up to that 1 kill a minute. Sebekx here looking with Cboi to see if Czekolad overextends. Czekolad no flash. Cboi doesn't have his either. Spectral Maw coming out. There's the stun lock, and that's a big kill. Shut down going over to Cboi.
And just using that same brush we saw before to take out Gadget, being really patient and picking up these side lane stragglers from MOUZ. So now, again, Fear Bomb should be enough to actually, I think they still take the tower actually. I think they can just tank it up, pick up a tower for themselves. A bit of extra gold influx. Actually, Not going to be able to take it now, but they can just stay and get it. But it's just about picking up that gold in the side lane, trying to get a bit more resources on your carry before we get to that next dragon point. Because I feel like with it being an Infernal Soul, with the value of that in this game, it's just going to be these teams playing around that dragon spawn.
With Pridestalkr coming in, actually looks like MOUZ might be able to hold on to this. Kamilius on the way as well. Gadget coming in. Cboi, that's just overextension. Why are you doing that, Cboi? You're just going to get called out by MOUZ immediately. Didn't respect the fact that MOUZ could come down the river. And it is just an overextension from Cboi. Was looking for the tower. Sebekx recalled. And Cboi just gave himself up to MOUZ.
Yeah, it's like, what's the game plan? You can't just walk in and take the tower with his out there. So you hit him with your W for some poke, I guess. Just a pretty big replay overall. And it's going to mean that MOUZ can take that first tower now. Sebekx, and she's looking for something here.
Whoa!
What a champ. What a champ.
I mean, let's give him some credit.
Right?
Double TP is coming in as StenBosse. This would be a really good flank position, but he doesn't have the flash, and Satorius can get that showstopper on him to get him away from the fight. Mousesports on the retreat, backing away. No unleashed power, of course, on the Syndra, and it will just be a TP for TP trade. StenBosse might look for the long way around here. Goes in, Oracle's popped. There's the control ward, and we'll spot him out.
Yeah, and this is why I love having a Sett into Kennen, because it just means anytime there's that threat of the Slicing Maelstrom, if Kennen has his ultimate, you can just literally pull him out.
Kamilius going in. There's the Slicing Maelstrom. The Lantern will get him out as well. Bushy's trying to put the damage down from across the wall, but just can't get it. Minion Wave will be pushing for Macko in this bottom side. Satorius can try and hold it at bay, and we'll see if Macko are willing to continue to invest into this bot lane tower. Will be their first turn of the game. And yeah, they'll get it in the end.
Yeah, they were really trying to get that tower. It's still very much MOUZ favored in that regard. They're only about 1,000 gold up, but the fact that they've taken down that mid tier 1 means they have a lot of control. They can sort of spread out across the map and critically around that dragon area. And that should be the goal now. It's a minute 30 until that Infernal Dragon. This is going to be the big fighting point throughout this game. There's a lot of value in that. And at this point, all those flashes we were talking about before are back up and available. It's only Pridestalkr that is down from when he took out Cboi a minute or so ago. So it's going to be difficult to get on those backliners. But you also have things like the Slicing Maelstrom and the Kennen paired with the flash is a lot more potent.
How different the gold is in the jungle here. I haven't really talked about it too much, but Pridestalkr 40 CS up. That's about 10 camps extra cleared, and the 1,700 gold lead must have been picking up some of those plates from the Herald as well, of course. So Pridestalkr in a very strong position. Mid lane relatively even. Bot lane about 900 gold, the difference between the AD carry and the mage on the side of Gadget. So if Bushy can survive through a fight, has just completed a second item, has that Phantom Dancer in there. You can see MOUZ now setting up around this. Slicing Maelstrom just about to come off cooldown for StenBosse. Has the flash though, and the rocket belt. So has a few avenues of approach. Might want to go the long way around. Might want to get down through that bot lane tribush. You see MOUZ trying to spot him out, make sure there's no avenue for him to approach.
And it's really difficult to push in here because, I mean, the Ziggs. Anytime you move forwards, there's a potential a bouncing bomb comes out. You can see he throws down the satchels. That essentially just eliminates that choke as an option. They'll do so much damage. They're going to try and take mid priority and use that as a route to move through, but Kamilius is hovering, looking for a potential engage.
I really think StenBosse should just work his way down through tribush. Like, you get such a nice flank off the back of this. Of course, we have the luxury of knowing there are no wards over there. StenBosse now starting to walk down towards that side. I think he's got a blast cone where he's standing right now as well, so might look for that as his possible engage opportunity. Control ward in the pit. There's the stun on Kamilius, and he's down to 500 HP. StenBosse does have that blast cone, does have the opportunity to get in, has the flash, has the Slicing Maelstrom. Vision being cleared away. Satorius and Czekolad on the front line. Click uses the lantern to make sure that MOUZ weren't lying in wait. Mid lane control for Macko right now as Bushy pushes in the wave.
I feel like really that poke and Kamilius kind of made their engage option a bit limited now. MOUZ about to back away. Engage coming in.
Here goes Kamilius in with a charm, but a great scat of the week will stop MOUZ in their tracks. Satorius going in. Bushy's still alive on the backline, flashes away from the face breaker, and Satorius, even with a haymaker, will only be able to take out one. However, StenBosse died as well, and now it's 3 against 3 in the fight for the dragon. Macko stepping in, Bushy going there, Cboi there as well. Sebekx has the TP, and Cboi just jumps into his death. It's the second time in as many minutes we've seen Cboi make a mistake.
It has not been an ideal play there, and I think Macko did a pretty good job of disengaging and dealing with the threat of the Sett, but unfortunately, MOUZ end up with position on the dragon. It's still that Viktor, that Ziggs alive, who can put the zone control down, and then Cboi tries for the steal, but doesn't even really get close on it. And you see the engage come in from Kamilius, very quickly gets targeted down. It's some great disengage to buy time, but then we end up with a situation where Pridestalkr just essentially solo kills StenBosse. But on the other side, 4 members manage to deal with that Sett. But then here we see the W from Viktor, the Hextech mines come down.
He's got a control ward in there.
He should know on the health. I think the thing is as well, if you timed it with the Jinx ult, there's potential that could have been a good steal, right? The Jinx ult chunks it out, you go in with a smite, but it was 2,000 HP when he jumped in. It wasn't even close.
Just a little bit over eager on the trigger finger there, and it's something we have seen Macko fall prey to in the past. An unwillingness to let things go, and we wondered whether they would have fixed that problem for this game. It looked like it in the early game. It looked like they were willing to not overinvest, but bot lane tower and then that dragon, perhaps just a little bit too much from Macko so far. However, they do still have a very strong Jinx. 3 items almost complete. Cboi looking for Satorius here. StenBosse is in the vicinity, but so is Pridestalkr coming out of base, and Satorius will be able to walk away.
And this is why, honestly, I feel like Satorius has been playing this game so well, because he's been diving so deep that whether he kills Bushy or Bushy kills him, just Bushy isn't really in a position to do anything off the back of that, right? You've had to kite back away from this Sett because he has the potential to hit you for 1,000 true damage with his W. And then even though you get the extra movement speed, you'd have to run forwards when there's like a Ziggs and a Viktor with all that potential zone control. It just makes it very difficult, because I think Macko want that sort of quick kill that they can sort of chain into momentum. They're just not finding it right now.
They do have at least a few more opportunities to look for it. We've already seen how much damage Sebekx can put down. You know, Kamilius was poked out of that fight and went for the engage, but was burst before he could even really get anything off. Sebekx having a great game so far. Scatter the Weeks being on point over and over again. Death Ray coming out though from Czekolad will chunk him out a little bit. There's the hook as Macko look to step forward. StenBosse forcing Satorius to answer that bot lane tower. And Macko are trying to answer MOUZ's pressure up towards this top side. You need to find that initial damage, that poke damage, that pick damage, really. Otherwise, MOUZ do just have total control of this area.
I think another thing to look at is the fact that we do actually have level leads for Sebekx and Bushy, because we talked a bit about the difference between junglers. I think a lot of those jungle camps have been being picked up, and particularly by Bushy, who is, I think, about a level and a half, level and 3/4 ahead of the Ziggs. So, as you said, this is a really powerful Jinx. 3 items now. We just kind of need the ideal circumstances for Macko, and that's been, I feel like it's been one of the issues. They're able to find strength in the early game and the mid game as well, but when it comes to these late game team fights, it's not always the optimal setup. Now, talking to setup, Kamilius,
if Sebekx has Scatter the Week, he's pretty safe in that sort of situation, right? And you can see Macko trying to answer. Czekolad actually pushing forward here, but the charm comes out and Sebekx is not there. Mega Infernal coming out as well. Heartbreaker used by Cboi, but he is down, almost down, and Click has already fallen. Pridestalkr going in when becomes lightning. A little bit short. Here's StenBosse on the back line, but the slicing Maelstrom doesn't really get too much damage down. Bushy though now opening up with the big guns on a killing spree. Gets 2. It's a double for him. Sebekx, Cboi, and Bushy all still alive. A 3 versus 3 left on the Rift once again.
And honestly, the slicing Maelstrom didn't do too much damage, but the critical thing is it held him in place for the Mega Death Rocket, and that allowed Bushy to get a couple of kills there. It looked disastrous at first, honestly, for Macko, and I think we could have seen MOUZ heading towards the Baron should they were able to get more kills or disengage. It ended up just being that 2 for 2. And I think Macko just too grouped up in this situation. There's so much AoE offered by the side of MOUZ. They have the Rakan who can pretty much engage whenever he wants, and they will frequently take those opportunities. Big takeaway here, though, that we can talk about is the fact that is Viktor's flash used there, so it is going to be unavailable for a fair amount of time, whereas Bushy, his flash is actually coming up, it's up now after we end the replay. So look at this dragon in 40 seconds. Czekolad definitely could be a target, whereas Bushy still has that extra tool to keep himself safe.
Once again, no slicing Maelstrom, no flash for this fight though for Macko, and MOUZ so good at zone control with the bouncing bombs, with the explosive minefield, with the gravity well coming out from Czekolad as well. MOUZ more zone control as a composition than Macko, and that's why you see Macko moving to mid lane, trying to draw at least one Mousesports member across so that they can then push in as a 5 and have an outnumbered play. But for the moment, it's Pridestalkr going in. There's the Flay, gonna knock him back. Crescent Guard used as well, and Click has to flash away. StenBosse unable to get in. Slicing Maelstrom is now off cooldown. Cboi looking for the flank position once again, but MOUZ just have total control over the Dragon Pit. Cboi caught out. We're on that ward, has a blast cone to get in. Is he gonna try and Heartbreaker in once again? Looks like Macko might want to take the fight. Satorius pushed back the Hook's gonna land on the Kamilius. Showstopper used onto the backline here as well. And you can see Satorius just able to kill off Sebekx. Satorius in a 1v4 just kills off the mid laner. Cboi was unable to get in for the fight. And Macko just can't find an avenue to approach these fights.
It's just insane that Satorius just jumps in like 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4, gets a kill, and he buys so much time because he's so tanky, does so much damage. Really finding a ton of value in this team fight and zoning away this backline. Cboi tried to go for the steal there, wasn't able to find it. And we were talking about how, you know, that potential 27-minute dragon after the first one was stolen from MOUZ. MOUZ are now on 3 Infernal Dragons as well. If they get a 4 Infernal Dragon Infernal Soul, the damage would be absolutely insane. And the thing is, Macko, they are really in a difficult spot because it feels like they just haven't been able to approach the dragon in any of these fights, and that isn't necessarily going to go better. So what's the alternative?
Didn't Slicing Maelstrom. He didn't use the Slicing Maelstrom in time, and he doesn't have a stopwatch. Oh, that's pain. It's these individual errors that is really costing Macko. Like, it was a good start of the escape. Czekolad was on the chase, and you could see Bushy coming in from the side, but no stopwatch, no Slicing Maelstrom, no stun on Czekolad meant that he was just able to run down StenBosse, and now Baron is on the cards for MOUZ.
Yeah, again, it's so difficult to push in these situations. No TP from StenBosse as well means they're at least going to try and bait this Baron.
Oh, they go for Bushy straight away. There's the charm, there's the knockup. Mega Inferno coming out. Bushy able to escape with the Gale Force, and now that Jinx has to do all the work in this fight. Cboi on the backline, a good scout of the week as well, but Pridestalkr, Crescent Guard, GA, just too darn tanky for anything that comes out from Macko. In a 3v5, Sebekx, the new target as Pridestalkr jumps in once again. Bushy low mana right now. Kamilius can go back in. A good scout of the week once again will chip away at MOUZ's health bars, but they don't even have to go for the Baron. They can just back away and settle for the single kill. Yeah,
they'll take the kill. They are going to back away. They have to respect the fact that StenBosse is back on the map. And if they go on that pit against a Slicing Maelstrom, it would be scary. But I think this game is just so frustrating for Bushy, right? You disengage from that situation, use your flash, use the Gale Force. But then what can you do, right? You hit Satorius and you're just building up his W so he can just hit you even harder. You can't really get too close to him. And then Pridestalkr has his ultimate, so you're literally doing 0 damage to him. And it just feels like Bushy isn't really able to have as much impact as you'd think a 5-on-1 Jinx would. And now he is flashless. Sebekx also flashless. And we're 2 minutes away from that critical Infernal Soul fight.
Flash in, Bushy the target. There's the Lancer, but he can't get there in time. Click, put it down. Bushy was unable to click it. And now MOUZ, having killed off the only really fed member on Macko, turn their eyes straight towards the Baron. Sebekx would have to do something massive here to turn this around, but MOUZ have total vision control. They will start up the Baron. StenBosse on his way. Flash Slicing Maelstrom, a possibility. 8,000 HP on the Baron. 7-6 now. Cboi stepping in. Kamilius hooked up. They're looking for the stun. They're looking for the CC chain onto this Rakan. StenBosse on the flank position. Has the flash. Has the Slicing Maelstrom. But it's already gone. Pridestalkr jumping in. StenBosse unable to save his mid laner as Sebekx is chased away. Wind Becomes Lightning will find its mark. And Macko lose the Baron, lost their AD carry, lost their mid laner, and perhaps have lost any hope of making it to quarterfinals.
Yeah, again, they lose this, they're out. There is no other way to spin it. And it's now Baron in the hands of MOUZ. 1.5 minutes until that Infernal Soul potentially on the cards. Things are not looking promising for the side of Macko. I'm going to go into the replay, and essentially it's really difficult to approach, right? Because Kamilius is there, they're like, we have to try and deal with them first, but because StenBosse and Sebekx are split, as they should be, you don't want to be grouped up against this comp, but they don't have the damage to deal with the Rakan. And then Pridestalkr, I mean, he just jumps on Sebekx, and there's nothing he can do. There's no counterplay. He presses R, takes like half of his HP, and that's about it. And now they're going to take that top lane inhibitor. I think a reset's going to come out here, and they're going to go for that Infernal Soul. Macko, they need a miracle team fight. There's no other way you can sort of say it.
Got to find something truly special to get back on into this game. Of course, Bushy is strong, like 4-item AD carry, 4-item Jinx, can shred through a team. The problem is, how do you ever approach this team? You've got a Ziggs, a Viktor, total vision control, total zone control. Macko might just look to TP in and gain vision control first, as Mousesports will actually have to step into darkness. But with that inhibitor down, MOUZ can just wait this one out a little bit. Get mid-prior with your Baron buff, push it in, and then say, well, you have to answer the super minions that are going into top lane. StenBosse is looking for a flank position. MOUZ might not even look for the fight. They're like, okay, you can set up around the Infernal as much as you want. We have a wave. well, a couple of minions, and we can just look for your inhibitor tower. Satorius can tank it up. Gadget has the satchel charge. You can see the backs coming out from Macko. Like, whoa, we did not expect this to happen. Infernal now a possibility, but can MOUZ just push this in? They got away. They got a super minion up in the top lane coming in the second. Sebekx flashed in. Unleashed power does not do enough damage to Czekolad. There's Mega Inferno Bomb as well. And Macko have just been pulled all around the map. Bushy, the last man standing, defending the base, and he does have the damage. Now, can he put it down? Gadget and Czekolad have to be his targets. No flash on the Viktor, but that's the second tower down. And that's the Nexus focused out. Gadget flashes in, the Nexus falls, and Mousesports go to 2-2.
Honestly, I gotta praise Mousesports here. Some great decision making there. They know the dragon isn't actually that important. Macko had to try and prevent it, so they just pushed down mid, find the engage, and we expect this to be a really sort of drawn out bloody game from what we've seen for these teams, but I think MOUZ was significantly more controlled than we saw them throughout their week one. And I think they need to carry that, and this is keeping their sort of chances alive. Macko will unfortunately be knocked out, but MOUZ are looking like they can still be a contender.
Oh, definitely. And it's a big win for MOUZ, as you say. It keeps them close to Vodafone Giants and Karmine Corp, although they are still 1 win behind. The question is, can they find a win against those two giants? Can they really challenge the top dogs of this group, or will we see Group D being a Giants and Karmine Corp road? Giants play up next against Macko. See if Macko can bounce back after being eliminated.
He's gonna flash in, and he steals the bomb. How did that connect by Edgeway?
As EU Masters Champions.
And welcome back to the Amazon EU Masters. What a game we just saw. Macko unfortunately eliminated from the tournament, although they will still play their remaining 2 games today. Mousesports with a more controlled style than we've seen from them so far this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, there were still the positives. I think Pridestalkr was an absolute monster. We saw them go with that creative swap to deal with a Kennen, where Czekolad would take a mage in the top lane against it. But it felt like, well, we expected a bit of mess, a bit of chaos, like we saw in that match against Macko last week. We saw a lot more restraint, a lot more controlled decision-making. As a result, it felt significantly cleaner.
It really did. Of course, Macko overextending a couple of times, giving MOUZ kills makes it a lot easier for them to control the map. When you have a man advantage, it's a lot easier to gain areas of control. But what I did like from MOUZ was, you know, the lane swap early on. Czekolad able to build a huge lead. StenBosse really wasn't able to do too much in this game because of how far behind he was. And then their ability to find engages, and specifically Satorius' ability to go in 1v4 and still manage to pick up kills.
Yeah, I mean, he had a bit of a rough Sett game last week where he just looked like kind of a bit of a non-factor. But here, I think in particular, he was just stellar. Consistently diving on the backline, creating space, and making Bushy's job just unplayable. Typically, you see a Jinx that fed in a game, you think, well, it's easy sailing, but just never really was able to do much. I mean, you're pumping damage into a Sett or as in Zhao. Both of them feel pretty much invincible. I mean, this is Zhao literally when he has his ultimate up.
Yeah, it's so difficult for him to ever do anything. And then, like, as you say, Pridestalkr was just in such a strong position as the game went on. And I think it looks a lot closer than it was at times. Like, it felt like after Macko weren't able to get, you know, the 2nd or 3rd Infernal, it just started to eke away from them. You know, like at the 20-25 minute mark, it felt like Macko needed to find something to get back into the game, whereas MOUZ just had control and were able to keep the game away from Macko. And I will say as well, we did end up with 26 kills in 33 minutes, which isn't too far away from the 1 combined kill a minute that you promised me all. So I'm not gonna hold that against you.
They did a decent amount of catching up towards the end, but again, what wasn't as explosive. I think the thing is, if we look at that Kennen pick, if it hadn't been the Kennen into the Viktor, if we saw StenBosse able to build a lead, be more relevant, it could have been a different game. Could have been that 3rd dragon fight with a huge slicing maelstrom coming in. But sure, you know, that's part of the strategy. And I think that, you know, we've credited Macko with coming up these creative strategies like the Nasus mid and even the Ezreal mid, which was less convincing. But yeah, I think it's cool to see these teams who are willing to think outside the box a little bit more and the advantages it does give them.
Of course, Macko can still play spoiler throughout the rest of the day. They've still got Giants and Karmine Corp to play against. And if they can take a win off either of those 2 teams, which we've seen eliminated teams do in the past, you know, beat the favorites for it, then they can really set Mousesports up into a good position, or even get Giants #1 seed as opposed to Karmine Corp getting that. So we'll have to see how Macko are able to play through the rest of the day. Mousesports still in the competition at 2-2. They really need Karmine Corp and Giants to drop games to Macko if they're going to be able to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, there is a scenario where if they win sort of both of their games, then they'll still keep their fate in their hands, right? Because K-Corp and Vodafone Giants, there is a possibility I mean, if they win both their games, all 3 of them will be tied on that sort of 4-2 point. But it's a big ask. I think the critical thing is that they have to win one of the matchups. You have to beat either Vodafone Giants or K-Corp from the point of view of MOUZ if you want to keep your hopes alive, and then you'll be dealing with the tiebreaker scenario. So just gotta do the best you can.
I mean, that's kind of what you always have to do in tournaments, right? Or it's like,
I like how
I'm not gonna say that was a bad point because we're feeling right now.
You call me out every time. I'm like, hey you guys, have to do the best.
When you play computer games, you want to win the
destroy the Nexus, right? Is actually, I was looking at some stats that the team that destroys the Nexus wins 100% of the time.
Is that true?
Maybe not, because there's that double Nexus explosion.
Yeah, so there's the surrender thing where you can like kill the Nexus, but the enemy team surrendered already.
Come on, dude, cut me a break, honestly.
That's all right. We have Vodafone Giants versus Macko coming up next. We've got a couple of minutes to go to a break before we get on into that game. So we'll be right back after this.